Listen, Kenny, I came here tonight for a match, and I'm not leaving without one, and quite frankly, neither are you.
Oh, you want a match? Hey, guys, listen, Adam Page wants a match. We can do that. We can do that. Because I can see by the look in your eyes that you want me in this ring all to yourself. But I can do you one better. Not only do you get me, Adam Page, but hey, why don't you cue up the Goon Squad as well? Your guys against me and all of the elite. 5 versus 5 elimination style.
You're listening to Talk AEW, the official wrestling podcast of Goombastomp.com. I'm Mariko McDonald, your co-host, joined as always by Mr. Aaron Santos.
Hello, WrestleManiacs.
And of course, the editor-in-chief of Goombastomp.com and TiltMagazine.net, the ravishing Ricky D.
Jesus. I saw Jesus last night. He was there. It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, Jesus is a big wrestling fan.
Yo, I popped so loud when I saw Jesus.
I am honestly surprised that you saw. I honestly had to do like a second look on the DVR because I'm like, what the heck is he talking about? What Jesus?
Dude, did you see the GIF that I sent you and I put on Twitter? He was wearing the exact same outfit.
And Jesus has been in the audience at AEW before, pre-pandemic times.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was like a running gag. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, this is the third time that I've spotted Jesus in the crowd for an AEW show. So this is the return. We've all been waiting so long for Jesus's return, and it was last night.
Okay, now I get it.
This was the new Jesus. It was amazing.
All right, so I think we're just going to roll right into things with, of course, Ricky's rapid fire questions.
That is right. Before we get to the main event, I do have some questions to get out of the way. So my first question is, Jesus, who do you think invited him? Miro, maybe?
Darby Allin, because Lord knows he needs a savior in that match.
He was cheering hard for Darby Allin, I gotta say. Moving on, I'm sorry. I thought that was amazing. The fact that the dude is dressed like Jesus and the fact that they actually wrestled. We're going to talk about this later, but they actually wrestled into the audience right next to God's
Oh, yes,
son.
that was great.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to take a second to mention Alex Abrahante's hat. Like, talk about awesome fashion. I loved it. You know, last week, I said a lot of great things about Alex. I think he's amazing. I think he's like one of the best personalities in AEW. And I'm glad I said a lot of nice things about him because his poor dog died. So I felt so bad. Yeah, I saw it on Twitter and I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. He's like one of my favorites in AEW. So, and I really, honest to God, love the hat. On to the actual first question. I just want to give a big shout out to Alex for a second. But the first question is, Jon Moxley returned to AEW television for the first time since Double or Nothing. I was so stoked he came out. Wild Thing was playing. The crowd went nuts. It was awesome. Eddie was by his side. He defended the IWGP championship against Machine Gun Karl Anderson. My question, though, is, does anyone have a problem with the fact that AEW decided to put the very first opening match on Dynamite for a belt that belongs to a different promotion?
No, and I don't think it's the first time they've done it either. I mean, they've done NWA Women's Championships as a pre-show, so it didn't strike me as being unusual for AEW.
Yeah, it didn't strike me unusual either. They've done it in the past. A lot of the fans that follow AEW, I'm sure a lot of them are NJPW fans too, so they're following this stuff closely. So it's a great way to start for me.
Yeah, and I mean they've always been putting like top tier talent in the opening matches. Like you don't have to wait to the main event to see like the top stars, which is really cool.
Mhm.
So yeah, I didn't really blink.
Okay, so after the match, AEW clearly set up the Texas death match between John Moxley and Lance Archer via a post match promo by the Murderhawk Madman. And of course, Jake the Snake. So, thoughts? Death match? Are we excited given what happened last time?
There's no exploding. As long as
Mhm.
pyrotechnics aren't involved, I think we're safe. The other thing is that they have both these guys have done this type of match before against each other in
Yep.
Japan. So I feel like there's less unknowns here for us to be worried about. I'm actually really excited for this. I think it's a good way to get Lance Archer a bit more credibility back.
Mhm.
Um, I think it has the potential to be really good.
Yeah, I think it has potential to be really good too. Granted, I didn't see the first match when John Moxley faced Lance Archer for the IWGP US Heavyweight Championship, but
I also missed it, so that makes me extra excited to watch it this time.
mhm. So I'm pretty excited, and it's funny too because like what after John Moxley beat Karl Anderson, I was like, it'd be like because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, who can they have like AEW like fighting for the IWGP Championship? And then for some reason, the idea of like Lance Archer popped in my head because I'm like, well, he was a former, and then lo and behold, they did a match. They booked a
Yeah,
match.
I guess I hadn't put two and two together that Lance was the guy that Moxley had beaten to get in the first place. I was like,
Hmm.
wait, oh, I know where this is going. And then the promo happened. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be noted that the match that happened last night on Dynamite was supposed to happen at Wrestle Kingdom, I believe. But because
Oh,
of
in
COVID
Japan.
19, it got canceled, so they decided to finally have the match last night on
Oh,
Dynamite.
really? So, oh,
Yeah,
Huh.
that's okay.
because Anderson was supposed to fight him. I don't know when it was supposed to be, but the match was originally scheduled for it's Wrestle Kingdom, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because, as you know, I'm a big fan of Lance Archer. I think Lance Archer might actually win.
Yeah, I think he kind of would need to.
I think he
Hmm.
has to. He's lost too many big matches. They need to do something with Lance Archer. And John
And
Moxley's kind of like in dad mode right now.
Hmm.
yeah, and yeah, like the whole credibility thing, like a belt, regardless of whether it's this promotion or another promotion, goes a long way to that. So
Okay, so last week I talked about how Ricky Starks would become, well, not become a good guy, but the crowd would cheer for him big time, especially this week because it's in Austin,
Hmm.
Texas, and he lives in Austin, Texas. And so it's no surprise that the crowd was cheering for Ricky Starks versus
holy
Yeah.
Brian
smokes,
Cage.
were they cheering for Ricky
I
Starks?
think he got the biggest cheer.
Yeah.
I mean, Hangman got a big cheer, but it was different because this was an actual match.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and they were like 100% Ricky Starks the entire match. They
Yeah.
could care less about poor Brian Cage.
Even though he's like booked as the face, I felt so bad for him.
Yeah.
I think the biggest pop was when he actually won and actually won the championship. But my question is though, I mean, we love Ricky Starks. It's great that he
Hmm.
won a match in his hometown and a championship, but does this make us actually care about the FTW championship belt?
No, doesn't make it, more,
Yeah.
it doesn't make it any more or any less important. It's just there.
I mean, it's always been a Team Taz thing. It's still a Team
Hmm.
Taz thing, and as an indicator of being in or out of Team Taz, I guess it's important in that respect. But I mean, as far as like a, a belt that needs to be defended every week, like it was never that. And it's never going to be that.
I really do not care about the championship, but I really do like Ricky Starks. Next question. Is it just me, or does the Cody Rhodes Malakai Black feud remind you of a classic Western?
I could see that. I mean, it's classic color coding, right? You
Yeah.
got the guy strolling in the white suit with the gold tie. You got
Hmm.
the dude in the all black, and they're just facing off against each other. Like, yeah, yeah. I see it a bit more in the sort of cosmic good versus evil, devil angel sort of thing. But I like the Western, yeah.
Because with classic Westerns, there's always the black hat versus the white hat. The white hat being the good guy, the black hat being the bad guy. And the standoff, it kind of reminded me of like the old Clint Eastwood, Sergio Leone films. The dialogue, I actually messaged Patrick Murphy, the film editor over at Goomba Stomp and Tilt Magazine. He does the Sort of Cinema podcast with me. He's a huge fan of Westerns. And I was like, Patrick, there was a speech on wrestling, and it was all about this man who used to have a horse that was his prize horse, and he had to put the horse down. And I swear to God, guys, that speech came from a Western. I just cannot figure out which movie it is, so I'm hoping Patrick will know which Western it is. I'm not saying that they copied the movie.
Before, because I also grew up watching Westerns. Like, my dad was like hardcore Larry McMurtry, like Lonesome Dove and the whole 9 yards. So I feel like it's tucked in there somewhere, but I'll just try and do some research too.
Aaron, who do you think has more... What's the word I'm looking for? More of a push, more of an influence in terms of like reaching more people, being more of a mainstream box office success. Would it be Malakai Black or would it be Andrade?
It's tough to say because I mean, they both had like their big moments in NXT, and the problem is like when they got to the main roster, like none of them really got much of a push. I think Andrade probably has more for like the hardcore wrestling fans, just because of like the stuff he did in.
Well, he's a legacy. He's been wrestling since he was a teenager in Mexico, so I mean,
yeah, exactly.
He has like fan bases in multiple countries with multiple promotions.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the whole like faction in NJPW when he started, which is still going on too. So I think Andrade would have the bigger push.
I think so too, at least worldwide in terms of his international success. Plus, he was in WWE also. So yeah, I totally agree. Okay, Tony Schiavone hit the ring to interview Hangman Adam Page, just about everyone's favorite cowboy. In walks Kenny Omega. They have some words. Here comes the Elite. Here comes the Dark Order. I want to know, Mariko, Aaron, are you team cowboy shit or are you team Elite?
I'm gonna say I'm team cowboy shit just because I want Adam Page to get, just to get his comeuppance or like his spot.
I thought you would say team Elite because like Kenny's your favorite wrestler. You love the young schmucks. Like I'm surprised you said team cowboy.
Yeah, I mean I still love the Elite. They're fun to watch, but there's only so much like tomfoolery until you're just like, okay, can we just get on to something else new?
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure Mariko's going to say Elite.
What? Dude, I'm on like hardcore SSRIs for like 10 years now. Of course I'm anxious millennial cowboy all the way.
Okay, but here's the thing. I'm not sure if I like this, okay? I love this whole storyline. I love the idea of Hangman Adam Page finally getting his shot at the world title. But there's a match before the match, and the match comes with a stipulation. Clearly, the Dark Order and Hangman are winning the match because they need them to win the match for Page to get the title shot. So, anyhow, I don't know. I just don't like the stipulations.
The stipulation is just fine, just because you need to build up coming.
The stipulations are just about padding things out until the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And we know who's gonna win because we know who the momentum has to be with, but that doesn't mean like fun things still can't happen.
I mean, what else could you possibly I don't know. I mean, I feel like the stipulation is just fine because everyone gets what everyone gets a little bit of something, but at the same time, it's like there's not much the Elite can offer except for like a tag team championship and a heavyweight championship anyway. So.
But if you look at the Chris Jericho MJF storyline that's taking place right now, so basically there's this whole theme of Greek mythology, and Chris Jericho is schooling everyone on Greek mythology, and he has to fight 5 guys before he can fight MJF. Now, I remember way back in year one when we started the podcast, I said the best storyline of that year was the Cody Rhodes MJF feud, because Cody Rhodes had to beat Wardlow in the cage. He had to take the lashes. Like, there was all these things he needed to do. So it was like a character arc, and he grew as a character, as a wrestler. He matured. He became stronger, and then he had the match with MJF, and it was great storytelling. In this case, we have something similar. We got Chris Jericho. He needs to fight 5 dudes before he gets his hands on MJF. Again, great storytelling. But it's a stipulation. So we know Chris Jericho is clearly going to beat Shawn Spears and FDR and Wardlow. But who's the 5th guy? There's a surprise. And what if he doesn't beat the 5th guy? Is he going to beat MJF? Is he not going to beat MJF? It could go either way. To me, I find that stipulation far more interesting in terms of storytelling.
Well, because it concerns one person. I mean, the rest of the going back to like the Elite and Dark Order. I mean, it's two factions against each other.
Yeah, but what if the stipulation was something that can actually happen? Like, they have to break up as a faction, and the Dark Order would no longer exist, because that is something we can actually see happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, like, wanting to see, like, I feel like it might be too early to do that stipulator, just because, like, first of all, no one wants to see Dark Order break up. Secondly, I don't think anyone wants to see the Elite break up. Well, actually, no. There's probably people that want to see the Elite break up, but I don't know. I just feel like it makes more sense with Chris Jericho, just because it's comparing it to the Trials of Hercules. I mean, like, because it's a very classic tale where Hercules had to go through these trials.
Right. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me. Like, the whole point of the rapid fire questions is to sort of like start a little bit of a discussion.
Yeah.
Sometimes a debate on, things that are happening, things that I see that are, to be totally honest, not trending on Twitter, but I do see a lot of these things come up on Twitter when I'm looking at people discussing AEW right after Dynamite airs. The next question, Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy. Okay, very simple. I just want to know, was this match a letdown, or did you think it was actually, like a good match? Because I thought it was very disappointing.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing, just because it's like, it's two old school wrestlers, and it's like, I don't want to sound so critical about it, but like, when you have so many like high flying action in AEW, and a lot of like, these risk taking and stuff, it's watching these old school matches, as great and fun as it is sometimes, can be a bit jarring, considering that the momentum AEW goes with, like the momentum and the pace. So that's why it was a little disappointing for me.
Okay, so for me, on my end, my view of this match was Christian Cage actually did some big things and looked really good. He flew off the top rope outside of the ring. He did the 5-star frog splash. He did the spear. He looked really good. My problem was Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy just can barely move in the ring. He's not fast. He's just not the same. Like, the guy can't really wrestle. And so it's like, Christian Cage still has his issues too. He's still older. He did come off the career-ending injury. And when you put Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy, man, it just was a very sloppy match, despite the fact that Christian Cage did have some highlights. But the ending was like atrocious. It was bad. It was just like a botch. It was really, really poorly executed. And what's funny is they sold this match, and the feud has Christian Cage versus Matt Hardy. They have a long history of wrestling, way back with the Hardys versus Edge and Christian, and of course there's the Dudleys and the TLC matches, and but they build it as Christian Cage has never beat Matt Hardy, but the truth is they've only wrestled twice in singles competition ever.
They said it was 3 times.
This is the third time.
Oh, this would have been the 3rd time. So
yeah, so 2 matches prior, Matt Hardy won both matches. and Christian Cage won this. So they made it seem like, oh my God, 22 years, he's never beat Matt Hardy. But yeah, they only fought twice, like 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, you gotta get something for the crowd to get excited for. So
I don't know, Mariko, did you think this match was any good?
Well, I've been calling it Uncle Matt and Uncle Chris get drunk and wrestle each other on the front porch. Because honestly, that's kind of what we got.
mm-hmm.
I was like, you just couldn't get over what you said last Thanksgiving, and so you're gonna have to work it out outside. Yeah, it was pretty much what I expected it to be, which was a pretty average WWE Legends match.
Mm-hmm.
It was what it was. It was what it said on the tin, and I wasn't disappointed because I had no expectations.
Once again, did Miro not have the best video package?
Yeah, he's absolutely killing it with this whole Redeemer thing. I'm so into it.
I think Miro is hands down the best champion AEW has ever had. I don't care what championship belt it is. He's killing it right now. Has a champion?
I want to see him defend it a little bit more, but I mean, I don't really think that's his fault. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Like, okay, like Darby Allin did a great job of defending the championship belt multiple times. Cody Rhodes was defending the belt week after week. Those guys were great. And of course, there was Brody Lee. Like, I mean, this is a guy who we just could not stand his character and his storylines like a few months ago. And now he's just like the best thing about AEW.
I think it's just like the way he's built. I mean, he's just built like a freaking monster, and he just knows what to say in front of the camera to just sound so intimidating and in command of the rest of the roster. So
It just looks like he's having so much fun.
oh, for sure.
I love his new tagline. I like his nickname, the
Yeah.
Redeemer. I love the video package. And I also like the TNT Championship belt because he has his own championship design.
I like the white leather. I'm not
Yeah.
crazy about the green, but
So the colors are clearly the colors of the Bulgarian flag. So each TNT champion has had their own championship design. Of the 4 belts, which is your favorite?
I'd have to say I like the white leather, to be honest.
yeah, I like, for me the perfect one would have been the faceplate from the black belt on the white leather.
Oh yeah.
I could see that. I still think my favorite is the original. Not the original, the Brody Lee belt.
Yeah, the Brody Lee is nice, but the original was like, what the hell is that?
Well, I mean, it was unfinished.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was unfinished.
You knew that, but still.
I still remember when Mike Tyson presented that one. I'm like, ugh.
Oh man.
Okay, 3 more questions, but here's the thing. My next question, I'm going to ask the question without actually asking the question, and you can reply as you see fit. Sammy.
Yeah, Sammy.
Okay, nobody noticed that JR said Sammy 5 times yesterday while Sammy was wrestling. Like, clearly JR loves Sammy. Like, he legit said Sammy 3 times in a row, 5 times.
Well, I mean, what is not to like? He's got charisma. He's got the ability. He's got the looks.
I just thought it was really funny. He's like my favorite wrestler, but I just like, because JR can never ever restrain himself and hold back from really letting us know who his favorite wrestlers are and who he really dislikes. And he loves Sammy. He loves Jungle Boy. Clearly his 2 favorite wrestlers, and he's a huge fan of John Silver. Next question. Wheeler Yuta made his in-ring debut at AEW. How do you feel about him?
He was not bad. He kept up with Sammy Guevara. There was a couple of like weird spots, especially like when he was like on the mat, where like he seemed to be adjusting a little too much. Like it's not a bad thing, like to set yourself in a good position for Sammy to do like a high risk maneuver, but at the same time, like maybe make it look a little more natural, like don't have your face staring up at him, like, and sort of like calculating your position where it's gonna land. So
To be fair, we complain about that every single week. Many wrestlers do it in AEW because they do too much Cirque du Soleil action. I mean,
I felt with him was a little too obvious though.
I think it was like
Yeah.
this is something I complained about last week. You know, a lot of people complain about it with AEW. You don't always have to have a high flying, risky move. You don't always have to jump around the ring and do cartwheels and look like a ninja. Even Sammy does this. Like he flips around
Oh, he does it a lot
way
though.
too often for no reason.
Yeah.
But the thing about Sammy is that when he does it because he's clearly showing off.
Mm-hmm.
He's being a show off, right?
Yeah.
He's egotistic. He thinks he's the best, and so it
Mm-hmm.
goes with his character.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wrestlers in AEW who just do it as if it's like a finishing move. Like, look at me, I'm going to do this great flip and a flip and a flip and a flip, and
Mm-hmm.
they sell it like it's this like great offensive like maneuver, but
Mm-hmm.
really it doesn't do much at the end of the day. Like they barely hit the opponent and or don't hit the opponent, whereas
Mm-hmm.
Sammy just does it to like kind of like show off. But in this match, I do agree. Like, I mean, it was his first match, but look, it's your first match on Dynamite and you're wrestling Sammy. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
would expect you to make a better first impression. I remember when Matt Sydal first wrestled on Dynamite, we all complained about what a poor performance it was, and we were really disappointed because we've
Yeah.
seen what he could do on Dark,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw what he could do in WWE and internationally, and it was just a really bad first impression because a lot of people are seeing this guy for the very first time,
Yeah, I
and
know.
so it wasn't like the best first impression. I don't think.
Yeah, and especially that you're coming out with the best friends and everything. Like clearly the AEW was trying to give him a big push. But I don't want to be so down on him, but like I said, there were a couple of stuff that he did that seemed very very green, you know. But I still have like high expectations. I mean, like I said, he came out with the best friends, so who knows? I mean, AEW might still have big plans for him.
Last question for the segment: Yuka Sakazaki versus Penelope Ford. Okay, so I'm about to rant. Is it just me, or should Penelope Ford have won this match? And I complained about this a while back. She
Hmm.
still seems like the most disrespected wrestler in the roster. She's constantly losing. They don't do anything much with her. She's always in someone's shadow, be it Miro or Kip. Finally,
Hmm.
she has a spotlight to wrestle on Dynamite, and she loses to Yuka, who hasn't wrestled for the company in what, like a year?
Yeah,
Like
like
I'm
16
sorry, like
months.
this lady's been here since day one. She's suffered through the whole pandemic. She's an amazing wrestler. She has an incredible look. Everything from her hairstyle to her actual outfit to her physique to her entrance music to her character, her persona. She's
Hmm.
amazing. Like I think Penelope Ford is such a star, but they don't do anything with her. And I'm sorry, I know a lot of people like Yuka um,
Sakazaki.
Sakazaki, but I hear great things about her. I hear that she's had some great matches. I've just never seen her be great. And so I
She hasn't.
question why she won
Hmm.
over Penelope Ford because Ford is amazing.
Hmm. Well, like with okay. I agree with you that I feel like Penelope Ford should be, taking a bigger spotlight considering like the work she's done. She's definitely very talented. She's a very good wrestler. Um, but I don't want to take away anything from Yuka Sakazaki at the same time because Yuka Sakazaki is also a very talented wrestler. She had some amazing matches during the women's eliminator tournament. Um, so like again, like don't want to take away too much from her. I feel like maybe what AEW and the booking what they should have done instead of use Penelope Ford, like maybe use someone else than Penelope Ford rather than have her like taking, sort of like all of these like I don't want to say like jobber rules, but you know, put Penelope Ford in a better situation instead of like being like this sort of like enhancement talent thing that she's got going on,
The thing is, I really do think Penelope Ford can be great. I think
She
they
does,
just
for
they
sure.
don't really give her a push. Like they always put her in these
Yeah.
matches where there's just no chemistry between her and the opponent, and or she
Hmm.
wrestles someone who's an unknown or not very good, and or she's like meant to lose the match. And in this case, she's meant to lose the match against Yuka
Yeah.
Sakazaki. And I'm sorry, like, you know, of all these Japanese wrestlers that we have, like Shida is incredible. She stands out. Riho is great. She stands out. She did not stand out for me. She just looks like a wrestler who, you know, is passing by. He's going to wrestle one match and make a cameo appearance and then just disappear like she did like a year ago. Like I
Hmm.
was really, really upset that Penelope Ford lost this match. Like super
Yeah.
upset.
I mean, another way to book this match, right, is like maybe have Penelope Ford win and start a feud with Yuka Sakazaki. Like if she's really gonna be in the States for a while. I mean, that would have been one angle.
Britt Baker has had some sloppy matches. You know, she's lost to Nyla Rose.
Yeah.
She's had some matches with big names like Thunder Rosa. But the
Hmm.
matches where she stood out, it was with women who are incredible in the ring, like Thunder Rosa,
Hmm.
Serena Deeb. But she's had some really sloppy matches. Look at the match that happened last week. I know it's a tag team match, but still. But
Yeah.
they've given her opponents who make her look 10 times better in the ring. Like, yes, Britt Baker on the microphone is incredible. Everyone
Hmm.
loves her persona, her personality, her charisma. But in the ring, let's be honest, she's not the best, okay? But I think if you give Penelope Ford the same opportunity, the same opponents, put her against Thunder Rosa, put her against Serena Deeb, she's amazing.
Hmm. No, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, we like with the handful of matches that we've seen Penelope Ford. Like I said, she's got the looks, she's got the abilities. I mean, totally agree that she should be getting a bigger push than she has last night.
I should just quickly state that for our listeners, Mariko did have to leave. Something did pop up, which is why she's been quiet because she hasn't been here. So Aaron and I were going to continue the show without Mariko. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to get into our main event and we are going to discuss the coffin match between Darby Allin and Ethan Page.
Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who was rich. Got a hot wife that can do the splits. The man was hot too, but he was lost. He was lost because he wasn't being himself. He walked out of his house to look into the void to search for what's next. After a few months, a voice from above came in. It said the man should to forgive himself and remember who he was. So that man, filled with the power, went and warned everybody, if you got a title, you've got a problem. But he wasn't a selfish man, that hero. He forgave everyone he destroyed on his path. And this made him God's favorite champion.
The savagery, the brutality.
And this was his reward. So everybody in this business should know that a true champion is willing to defend their title with their life. I'm willing to defend my title with yours. I am the Redeemer.
Welcome back to Talk AEW, the AEW fan podcast, which you can find over at goombastomp.com. My name is Ricky D, and joining me, of course, once again, here is Aaron Santos. Mariko is still MIA, unfortunately, so we're going to have to do this segment, and I assume the rest of the podcast without her, but it's no big deal because I think we can handle this, right, Aaron?
Mm-hmm.
So Dynamite ended with a pretty awesome, although too short, main event. It was not a casket match. A casket match actually belongs to WWE. I think they actually have the rights to use the word casket match. This was a coffin match between Darby Allin and Ethan Page. I guess we should talk about this because it was kind of like a big deal. It was the very first coffin match for AEW. Darby Allin is a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd in Austin, Texas was just incredible.
Yeah.
And did I mention that Jesus was in the crowd? So what I want to know, Aaron, is are you a fan of these gimmick matches? Are you a fan of the WWE casket matches that involve like Kane and the Undertaker and Yokozuna and so on and so forth? And what did you think of the coffin match overall compared to the gimmick matches of the past?
Well, with everything that happened in this match, I mean, like, it was just freaking awesome. I mean, anytime you get to see like Darby Allin in these sort of like hardcore type gimmick matches, I mean, he just always brings it. He certainly does it to the point where I fear for his safety and his life. But like I said, or that we mentioned, Jesus is there. So thank God for Jesus in there. Um, but if to answer the question too, like if I enjoy these gimmick matches or like these coffin matches, like yeah, I enjoy the coffin matches mostly because like it always brings back memories of, like you said, the matches with Kane, Undertaker. I think there was famous match with Yokozuna also. You don't get to see them, especially the coffin match. You don't get to see them as much anymore. So I don't mind seeing it in AEW anyway. So I enjoyed it.
There's a great article over at goombastomp.com. It's written by one of our regular writers, Tyler Bramley. So Tyler wrote this article. It's called AEW Made the Casket Match Good Again. And there's actually a video that he embedded in the article with the great Dusty Rhodes versus Ivan Koloff.
I think they were the originators of that match, no?
In a coffin match. Yes. Yeah. This is way back October 24th, 1980. So Cody's dad actually started the coffin match way back in 1980. I thought it would have been really cool if it was Cody versus Darby.
I think it would have been too obvious if there was Cody and whoever.
I guess maybe, but I mean, like even last night, Cody channeled his dad when he cut the promo, especially when he went to the announcer's table. I mean, he was really talking and huffing and puffing like his dad, Dusty. But I agree with you. I like gimmick matches. Like I really do. Like if the gimmick match is going to happen week after week, pay-per-view after pay-per-view, okay, it's going to get stale and boring and repetitive and redundant, and you're not going to want that.
Exactly.
But I like gimmick matches, and I'm still a huge fan of those classic Undertaker casket matches. Even the Yokozuna Undertaker match, like I wrote up a list of the greatest WrestleMania matches, and I think it was WrestleMania Royal Rumble. I can't remember. I think that one was WrestleMania. But anyways, I wrote that match, and I actually defended it being in my list because I think like the crowd reaction, the hype surrounding the match, the fact that the crowd was just off the charts, like going insane. There was so much suspense being built. Like even though it wasn't technically a good wrestling match, everything that happened before, during, and after the match was just good television. It's good storytelling. It was exciting. It was funny. It was silly. It's just good television. This was good television. This is like if someone tuned in for the first time and maybe they used to watch wrestling back in the Attitude Era and or the Ruthless Aggression Era and or even prior, like to that, like maybe the old 80s and early 90s wrestling TV shows that we used to have, like early Raw. I mean, they might actually want to keep watching AEW. I'm actually kind of curious to know what the ratings were, but yeah, I like everything from the Iron Man match to the strap match to the cage match to you name it, the blood and guts match. That's one of the things I love about AEW because they're giving this to us for free on free TV, free television.
Yeah, not only, well, like just to add, like like for anyone that enjoyed the Attitude Era, like the old school like late 90s wrestling. I mean, like that's one thing that I really sort of enjoyed with AEW, right? It's just sort of like this time traveling this wrestling pod of like of AEW, just going back to like these sort of like old tropes of the Attitude Era, and they take these old tropes but make it new again. That's what I enjoy out of AEW, and anyone that watches like this one is certainly gonna like who remembers fondly the Attitude Era is gonna like probably stick around AEW because like the thing is too is WWE is never gonna do these types of matches ever, like the whole like
Well, they still do their Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
they do Hell in the Cell, but they don't do like any of like their hardcore, quote unquote hardcore matches. Like you very rarely, no one ever gets color in WWE unless it's like a complete accident. That's what I'm trying to say.
The thing about this match is I thought it was a little too short for a main event, and I also wasn't too happy about the fact that they cut the commercial break during the main event, because the main event in itself lasted about less than 15 minutes, like maybe 10 minutes if I'm not mistaken, and they cut the commercial break, so you're watching picture in picture, which is not really cool. And like there were some great moments, like the fact that they tore apart the ring and they use the rope as like a fish hook.
Dude, that was sick. Like,
yeah, it was crazy. And the fact that Ethan Page gave Darby Allin the...
Yeah, I'm forgetting his finish. I always just call it the Razor's Edge because it is.
I mean, it is the Razor's Edge.
It is the Razor's Edge.
He calls it... I forget what he calls it.
Oh, the Ego's Edge.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Okay, now I remember.
From the second rope on top of the steel stairs.
Yeah, which is absolutely insane. I had to watch it back not long ago because like my wife missed the main event, and I just had to show her the match because like that Ego's Edge, like right on the steel steps. I mean, so many things could have gone wrong. I mean, it's again, every time Darby Allin fights or wrestles, I mean, I get like mild panic attacks for his safety.
Yeah, the guy does not need to take so many bumps in one match, but he just does. Also, I like how he does a callback to Bret the Hitman Hart when he was in WCW and he had that what do you call it? The what the hell was that he had on him? Like he had it under his shirt.
Oh, like a steel plate, like on his back.
Yeah, so Bret Hart had it on, and Bret Hart wore the exact same thing when Goldberg speared him, and it actually injured Goldberg. In this case, it was kind of like the reverse. He used as an offensive weapon instead of used as to defend himself, and he wore it on his back, so he can actually do the coffin drop.
Yeah,
which is a pretty... I mean, I don't know if it's a callback to Bret Hart, but I mean, that's where I remember seeing it prior. It was when Bret Hart had words with Goldberg, and then like there was so much great action, and of course, like again, the crowd was like really just going apeshit watching this match. The announcers were going apeshit watching this match. It was just incredible, like so exciting. It was such a great main event, and it's going to end with something happening to the casket. They're just not going to put the guy in a casket and call it a day. And when Darby Allin dropped a coffin drop on an actual coffin, I lost my mind. I was like, the man just coffin dropped the coffin. And then some people were like, oh, it's kind of like fake because it was like blah, 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 like some kind of special wood. I'm like, dude, coffin dropped the coffin. I coffin dropped my swimming pool yesterday and it hurt. Okay. So imagine coffin.
Yeah, I don't care like how thin that sheet of wood is, like you still get splinters and stuff. Like that's still gonna hurt. So
for sure. So I'm actually kind of surprised that JR, or especially Excalibur, one of these dudes, Tony Schiavone, that they didn't actually mention the fact that Dusty Rhodes invented the coffin match way back in 1980, given the fact that, Cody Rhodes is like, the vice president of the company, because they're always about the history, and let's talk about the past. And like, I was like, how come no one mentioned this? Because I only learned about this because of the article over at goombastomp.com, which, by the way, you should all check out. It's called, the headline is AEW made the casket match good again. Really good article. I thought this match was incredible. I mean, again, like I use the word incredible for what it is. Incredible for a short main event on a televised wrestling program, not a pay-per-view event. This is not WrestleMania. This is not All Out. This is not Double or Nothing. This is not the Royal Rumble. I just thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was told again. I mean, we said incredible a lot in this match, and it's not without its reasons. I mean, it was an incredible match, and considering that like a lot of stuff could have gone wrong, or a lot of stuff could have just not panned out with the fans or with the audience. I mean, everything went well according to plan. I like that the interference was not so present. Like you had interference, but it wasn't like, overtaking the match like a couple of times like the main events happen, like where interference just goes rampant and everyone's everywhere, and you don't know where to follow. We're not, because remember the Darby Allin and the Matt Hardy match.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because at first I was a little scared. Okay, so first of all, I thought Darby Allin was going to come out of the coffin. I was so sure there was someone in the coffin because of the amount of people that were carrying the coffin and the expression on their face. They actually looked like they were having trouble bringing the coffin to the ring. So I'm like, there's got to be someone in the coffin. It's got to be.
Yeah.
I thought it would be Darby Allin, so I was kind of surprised when Scorpio Sky came out of the coffin. And with the interference, I too thought about the Matt Hardy match, and I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be another disaster. And at first they lost control. Like they were just showing us footage of Scorpio Sky and Sting fighting in the crowd, and of course Jesus. And it was cool to see Jesus cheering them on, but I was like, where's Darby Allin? Where's Ethan Page? Where's
exactly. You're taking you're taking the spotlight away from the main event, or what should be the main match, and it's not exactly what I want. I mean, like, again, it's cool. Sting came back. I mean, it's fun for the fans. Everyone got to see Sting, but it shouldn't be like the centerpiece of the match,
No,
I
but
mean,
at least it didn't last too long. They
exactly.
did return back to the ring. But I just thought that, look, if you're going to cut to commercial break, you should have cut to commercial break when Scorpio Sky came out of the coffin and Sting and him are going at it in the background.
Yeah.
Not when Darby Allin is taken to the top of the top rope and being dropped on like steel stairs or something. You know what I mean? Like we're missing all this great action because it's picture in picture.
Yeah.
Like, so that, like, it's just really weird because we complain about this often. I understand that AEW has to, like, they need to have commercials during their program, but I always feel like they choose the wrong time to air these commercials, because they're giving us these great matches once again for free on free television. But like thinking back at, say, for example, like the Blood and Guts match, like when Jericho started climbing the cage, and MJF followed him, it was during the commercial break, so it was like picture in picture, and we didn't really know what was going on. Like you can sort of like see what was going on, but it kind of like at that point they had this like far shot of the cage. And like, I think I was listening to the Talk is Jericho podcast, and he was talking about how they went to commercial break too early, and or someone cued something a little too early, and so it didn't like match up to when they were supposed to go to commercial break. Like someone screwed up, and so I don't know if someone screwed up here, but I think that the show was clearly live. It was filmed live, and so I think they were running out of time, because like I said, the main event started at, if I'm not mistaken, the main event started about 15 minutes before the show aired. So by the time they actually got to the ring, like they entered the coffin entered, then Darby, or was it Ethan Page first, and Darby came out, and so that took about 3 minutes. So then you're left with 12 minutes for the main event.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like the timing was a little short. I mean, there's been a couple of spots that were a little off. I mean, but just to comment on like the commercial thing, I mean, like, it's okay to be critical on commercials, but at the same time, like during a live event, when the action is like hot, it's hard to tell like when the time is coming up for the commercials to come up. So I don't know. I feel like it could be hit or miss,
I mean, look, like when it comes to casket matches, I think my favorite, and maybe I would argue the best, is the Undertaker Shawn Michaels match. And I think Tyler actually wrote that in the article also. Like he agrees with me.
Yeah.
But I was also trying to figure out, like, I figured they would destroy the coffin or something would happen to the coffin. I didn't expect Darby Allin to actually coffin drop the coffin. So I was like, are they going to set it on fire? I'm like, they're not going to set it on fire, because that's just a huge, massive callback to the Undertaker and Kane match.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not going to have Ethan Page like disappear, because that's the Yokozuna Undertaker match when he disappears in a coffin and resurrects and he's like Jesus Christ and like ascends to the heavens. Like that was crazy. And you know, that's the thing, like that's what I mean. Like back then, like you talk about the show, like you have the Undertaker ascending to the heavens, like he's legit floating to the top of the arena. Like I know it's silly and I know it's unrealistic, but you know what? Wrestling is scripted. A lot of people like to use the word fake. It's the wrong word to use. It's with the word that they're looking for is that it's predetermined and it's scripted. It's like a TV show.
But that's the thing that I always enjoyed. Like when we talk about old school wrestling, I mean, like, yeah, it's fake. It could be silly, but the thing is about old school wrestling back then for me, like a kid growing up, for me, it was like watching a cartoon TV show, but in real life. You know, like anything could have happened. You had characters like the Undertaker. You had characters like, you know, all these like they were like characters off of comic books, out of a comic book story, but in real life, and you never saw anything like that in TV during that time for me anyway. So that's why, like, I don't mind when wrestling can be like a little out of the ordinary. We don't need to be this whole like sports simulation thing anymore, where it's like we're just trying to like parody sports entertainment or whatever. I mean, you could be a little, you know, fantastical about certain stuff.
What I do not understand is why some people like Jim Cornette are so upset all the time, because they say that wrestlers these days make it obvious and clear that wrestling is fake or scripted. Because, for example, they go on social media, they have a social media presence, and they are no longer their characters. They become who they are in real life as a person. And then you realize that they're all friends, even though they're supposed to be like heels and baby faces. But when I was younger, I mean,
We didn't know that.
no, actually,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I never watched wrestling and actually thought that it was like real. Like, I knew, like, okay, I knew for sure these dudes were getting hurt. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
you're gonna get hurt as a wrestler. But I mean, I always like was aware, even before anyone ever told me, that it was like predetermined. Like they clearly knew who was going to win. Like I didn't think it was a big, huge secret. So
Well, 'cause
I'm
those-
kind of like shocked that like way back in the days, people actually thought it was real. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think like maybe
because they sold their character. I mean,
their character, yeah. Like look, if I watch Macho Man Randy Savage, I figured that's the way he was in real life.
yeah.
You know?
And if you showed me Ultimate Warrior, I thought that was Ultimate Warrior in real life. You know,
right?
like,
But I didn't think that like I still thought that the matches were predetermined. Like even as a kid, I was like, okay, like it's gonna be fixed. Like they're gonna choose who they decide wins. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I never thought it was like real, like 100% real, like where, you know, like UFC real, where like
no.
who wins the wrestlers.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, granted, when in the 90s, I was still pretty young, so like it wasn't until like the late 90s or in the Attitude Era when I started realizing or started hearing more about like how wrestling is fake and blah blah blah. But when I was like,
I mean, to be fair, like one of my best friends in elementary school lived right next to me. Her dad and uncle, her whole family were wrestlers in the WWE. It was Moondog Spot and Mad Dog Vachon. That
cool.
whole family, right? That was her family. Whenever the wrestlers used to come to Montreal, there was like an event in Montreal. A lot of the wrestlers would come and visit her, like legit straight up here in LaSalle. Like if anyone from Montreal, LaSalle is sort of like a suburb. And so like Hulk Hogan, Junkyard Dog, you name it, all these dudes would like come and hang out at her house. So like maybe it's just because I kind of like knew her, and you know, but I like her dad would always be like injured, like her uncle would always be injured, her family would always be injured, like, so I knew it was real in the sense that these people would actually end up with these serious injuries. But I also knew that like the actual feuds were just sort of, for the most part, I mean, you know, some wrestlers actually hated other wrestlers, but for the most part, it was all scripted.
yeah. I mean, I'm a lot of us have seen like the Dark Side of the Ring stories, so. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like going back, like I said, when I was a kid, is especially like during the Ultimate Warrior era. I mean, there's one like particular scene that always stuck out. Like, and I believe that's why Undertaker, like for a long time, that's why Ultimate Warrior left, was when Papa Shango put a curse on Ultimate Warrior and he started like puking out yellow stuff.
Yeah, I remember
So
that. That was awesome. Oh my god, those were the days. I mean, I love wrestling right now, and a lot of people say it's like a great time or the best time to be a wrestling fan. I
mhm.
still think the best time to be a wrestling fan was like the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
But I mean, those early 80s, late 80s, early 90s matches were just like off the chart, bonkers, crazy, bizarre. Just like,
yeah.
Jake
They're
the Snake
they're
bringing his snake and having it like bite
yeah.
and like, almost bite off like Macho Man's like arm, like all this shit that they used to
Mhm.
do that you just can't do anymore because things change. And
Not only that, but they can do this because they can. I mean, now, like when you think about it, you have. I feel like,
well, now you would have lawsuits, you'd have like the internet
yeah, exactly.
complaining
I
about
mean,
God knows what.
just the inclusion of the internet alone. Like there's so much pullback in the fantasy world of wrestling. You know, I mean, you have the wrestlers interacting with fans on the internet, and it kind of takes away the whole like mysticism of it sometimes.
Well, that's why like that's one thing I agree with when I listen to Jim Cornette bitch all the time.
Hmm.
And it doesn't just apply to AEW. It's all wrestlers these days. Like I understand that you want to make money on the side selling t-shirts or having a Twitch live stream or
Hmm.
whatever it is. But your character is a character you're playing in the TV show weekly. Like it's kind of like an
Yeah,
ongoing soap opera like Days of Our Lives.
you're selling your character, and you want it
Right.
to be believable.
But the weird thing though is that like we don't watch Game of Thrones and then look at the actors in Game of Thrones and get all upset because they're on social media being a different character in a different movie or different TV show. What is it about wrestling that I don't know, it doesn't seem right.
Could be just like the precognitive sense of like, they're because it's actors, right? They're acting. Have we really seen wrestlers as actors, even though they are actors? But have you ever like stopped and think like they're not acting? Because like I said, we're talking back to like these characters from the '90s, like they were believable. Like for me, the comparison would be like Kenny Omega's, like because I've been following Kenny Omega for like a long time. He's played the heel character quite often also in NJPW, but he also like on his social media, he tends to be, I mean, he does like do these heelish cuts, and then when he does like appearances at events, he certainly does like appear as a heel, but he also does these things where like it's so off out of character with because he's a gamer, he likes to talk about like Street Fighter and all this stuff, and you get to see his, I guess, I'm not gonna say realer side because like again, like I don't know him in real life, but like you get to see like a completely lighter side of what you would normally see on TV or on a wrestling event anyway. So I mean, again, it pulls back the curtain of the character you're portraying on a wrestling show because of social media and the internet. The thing I like about Sammy, because so what Sammy does in real life and Sammy does in the ring, it's the same. I mean, like that's what makes him such.
It's like it's but you could say the same for MJF.
Well,
MJF
MJF,
never gets
yeah,
out of character.
MJF, man, it's like that's next level stuff what he's doing because like he just
But Aaron, look at the dudes that are the most popular in AEW. You
yeah
got
they
Darby
never.
Allin,
Hmm.
you got Orange Cassidy, you got Jungle Boy, you got Sammy, and then you got MJF. And
Yeah,
each and
they
every single one of these dudes,
never
who
break
they are
character.
in front of
Yeah,
the camera when
we
on Dynamite is who they are away from the camera on social media or in their private life or in their YouTube videos. They're exactly
hmm
the same. You know
yeah
who
they're
those people are.
yeah they're exactly the same. I mean that's why they're. I mean what they're doing in ring and whatnot in social media. I mean it's amazing when they can bring that sort of like level of believability in social media as well. Making the fans believe in your character. That's certainly the next level stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I prefer my old school way where if someone's a heel, then you're supposed to hate that person and you're supposed to like hate that person,
Hmm.
period. Like, because they're supposed to be the bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess the last thing I'll say about this subject is like, to me, it reminds me of an actor like Seth Rogen, who plays the same character or character type in every
Yeah,
movie. So, like, to me, Seth Rogen's not acting. Like, because every movie he's playing the same person. I just feel like Seth Rogen's being Seth Rogen.
yeah,
So,
he's just playing himself.
yeah, so I actually
Yeah.
met Seth Rogen once at Just for Laughs, and I got
Hmm.
into like kind of like not an argument, but something happened, and I was like, he's exactly how he is in his movies. He's like a complete douchebag. And like there was no difference between the Seth Rogen that I met at Just for Laughs
Hmm.
and the Seth Rogen that I've seen in every single movie he stars in. And so that's what I kind of feel like. I feel like sometimes it becomes hard for you to not see the actor in the role. So like you're watching, for example, Nicolas Cage playing Ethan Hunt. Can you
Hmm.
imagine Nicolas Cage playing Ethan Hunt?
Not
Like for Mission
really.
Impossible, you'll be like,
Yeah.
that just wouldn't work because all you would
No.
see is, I know Tom Cruise is a big actor and he plays Ethan Hunt, but what I'm trying to say
Hmm.
here is that you would just see Nicolas Cage. You wouldn't see the character Ethan Hunt. You would be like, that's Nicolas Cage. Like that's why I think it's great when they cast unknowns in movies
Hmm.
or relatively unknowns or people that completely transform and you don't recognize them anymore because of the hair and makeup and the physical transformation.
Hmm.
But if like I don't know if it's Nicolas Cage playing Indiana Jones or Luke Skywalker or Nathan
Superman.
Drake, like I'm like, that's not Nathan Drake, that's Nicolas Cage. Like I'm never ever gonna not look at the dude and not think it's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I mean, I got the same. Like I said, like I just made the joke. Like even Superman, because there was that time where he wanted to play a Superman.
Yeah, and I always thought that was a bad casting choice because I would just look at him and be like, that's
That's
Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage.
Cage. Yeah.
It just makes no sense because yeah. And anyhow, I don't know. I'm kind of divided on this topic. It's something a lot of people argue about, and all I know is like I guess the wrestlers are going to do what's best for them. And when you watch someone like MJF, I mean, he's money, and he's money for a reason because
Hmm.
everybody hates or and loves to hate MJF
Yeah.
because he's never out of character, which is
Hmm.
why he is the best heel in professional wrestling. And you know who else also does this? Britt Baker. Last week we talked about how the crowd would cheer for Ricky Starks, which they
Hmm.
did, and we also said the crowd would cheer big time for Britt Baker, which they did.
Yeah.
At this point in time, she's not a heel anymore.
No,
There's
I just
nothing they
yeah
can
no.
do to make her a heel. She's the
Hmm.
favorite. She's the baby face. But her character, the character that they tried with her at the start of AEW when she started with the company, it
Hmm.
didn't work.
No.
But what she's doing now is it's the same sort of character that she had prior. It's just that she's she's the good guy. It doesn't mean
Well.
that she's flawless. She's
Hmm.
still going to be bitchy. She's still going to like fight for her championship belt.
Hmm.
She's still going to think she's the best.
And that's why she comes off strong as a champion with the crowd too. Is just because like she's doing whatever it takes to. Well, she did whatever it took to get to the position she's at. I mean, she worked her ass off like in dark and elevation to get back into the rankings.
The best and most popular wrestlers of all time, except for maybe John Cena, were all wrestlers who, when they were the good guy, they were still complete assholes.
Mm.
Like, think about it. Shawn
Shawn
Michaels
Michaels, yeah,
was a complete dude, was a complete dick,
yeah,
even when he was a good guy. The Rock. I mean,
yeah,
The Rock would talk smack, make fun of everyone. You know, he was kind of like a dick.
hmm,
Stone Cold Steve Austin
yeah,
was always like an anti-hero.
hmm.
These are like the most popular wrestlers ever. Hulk Hogan, okay,
Well,
maybe he
and
was a little bit family friendly.
during the WCW era, he wasn't. Well, when he did NWO, he wasn't exactly family friendly. But
No. But I'm just saying, like, even the Ultimate Warrior, I mean, the guy was like the good guy, but he was like a complete maniac.
well, you just couldn't tell. I mean, you couldn't help but cheer for him, like because guy.
There's been guys who have been the baby faces, the good guys who are straight up like good guys, like good people, like Jungle Boy, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
Before we end the podcast, just really quick, this was a rematch between Ethan Page and Darby Allin.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler also wrote this really great article over at goombastomp.com, which you can go check out. And it talks about the number of rematches in all the companies. And it's crazy
Yeah.
to see the numbers. According to the statistics here, Raw, 57% of the matches in Monday Night Raw are rematches. 54% of the matches in SmackDown are rematches. 31% of the matches in NXT are rematches. Can you guess the number for AEW, the percentage?
Would certainly be less than 30%.
You're correct. It's
All
10.
right.
It's 10%. So once again, 57, 54, 31, 10% of the matches in AEW are rematches. And when it comes to pay-per-view events, 26% of the matches in AEW are rematches versus 65% in the competition.
I totally believe those numbers. I mean, I like that you put those numbers in that article. Like, again, like not to like bash too much. I don't want to make this whole like war against WWE, but there's a reason why I've cut back on watching WWE, because every week I feel like I'm watching the same match over and over and over again. So,
but the reason why I bring it up with the Darby Allin versus Ethan Page match is because I say this is a rematch. But is it really? Because they never had a
one-on-one match. They've had tag matches.
Not in AEW, because they had the 2-versus-2 Sting and Darby versus Scorpio and Ethan Page.
Yeah.
They had the handicap match, Page and Scorpio versus Darby Allin.
But never one-on-one.
So it's not even a rematch. Like, but this is what I find so interesting about AEW. Like, a lot of people like to criticize AEW, and sometimes people say it does a lot of what WCW or different wrestling promotions do, but they do it with their own little twist. The storyline, or the way it was sold as if it was like this big, huge rematch. There was like this feud between these two men, and it goes back years and years and decades. And Darby Allin, the first year he started wrestling was like the 12th year Ethan Page was already wrestling. And, but you go into the match, like if you're a first time viewer, you're thinking like, oh my God, these guys have probably wrestled like a bunch of times on AEW TV. No, this is the first time they've actually wrestled one-on-one.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just again, with AEW doing the right amount of build up, the right amount of storytelling to reach the point that we got to last night. You know, that's again AEW does do long term storytelling very well. I'll put that.
Variety is a spice of life.
I agree to that.
And on that note, I think we should end the podcast. So thank you, Aaron, once again for joining us. Anywhere we can find you online where you would want our listeners to track you down?
Can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at the Charmless6.
The Charmless 6. You can follow the podcast over on Twitter. It is Talk AEW Podcast. You can find all of the episodes over at goombastomp.com. Check the wrestling section and or the podcast section. As for the podcast, you can listen to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, you name it. It's everywhere. Once again, all the links are over at goombastomp.com. Follow us on Twitter, Talk AEW Podcast. And if you are interested in writing about AEW, we are always looking for more writers. A lot of the ideas that we come up with for our main events, our talk spots, or segments here on the very podcast come from the articles written by our writers. In this case, 2 articles written by Tyler, which were published on the website earlier this morning. So we're always looking for writers. Yes, we pay. You can find the information over at goombastomp.com. Send me an email. It's editor@goombastomp.com. We will be back next week. Hopefully, Mariko will be here for the entire show. And I guess that's about it. Thank you for listening.
I once saw a man kill a horse, Cody. I walked over to the man and I asked him why he did it. And with a tremble in his voice and tears streaming down his face, he explained to me that this was his prized stallion. This was the horse that brought him all over the world and won him titles. But one day he woke up and looked the horse in the eyes, and it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same horse that he had since he was young. Through wear and tear of all these years of competition, the horse had become crippled. So he decided the one thing he could do is let the horse go with dignity. So he brought him out to his favorite field, fed him his favorite treats, put a bag over his head, and well, here we are, Cody.